split willow, because that's what the original in the Elgin Museum is made of. That means getting 9 10-foot long willow rods, splitting them in half, and then soaking them enough to make them supple. And the problem we had was getting big enough and long enough willow that would be supple when it was mellowed. And this is Bowles hybrid, and it's all split. It's been soaking and wrapped in wet cloths for several days, but we did undoubtedly have quite a bit of a problem with the brittle nature of the material. It goes like that, and then it strips off just to the bark. And we did have some breakages and some problems, but it's worked pretty well, and we worked it out pretty well to the last rod, what we cut to use. The stakes and the weaving are all done with split willow, with the bark on the outside, which will be covered by the hair, and the split side on the in.
Right. The tools for any kind of basket making are really very simple. You need a good sharp knife, and this is a very sharp, good steeled blade. We use modern secateurs, but originally people would have just used knives. This is a wrapping iron, which is a basket making tool, so I don't know if it would have been originally used for coracles, but it's for wrapping down the weaving so it's fairly close together. It's got a fine side and a heavier side. A bodkin for making holes in the weaving so that you can put in extra weavers, or sometimes used to put in the weaving and then hammer down on it to close the weaving up. And this is sailmaker's fid, but it's very useful for threading. And particularly useful, we used it for the horsehair around the edge where the gunnel was being threaded onto the coracle itself.
You should think start with tips, wouldn't you? You heard me saying yuck in translation. Yuck. I know why we had the uneven number last time, don't you? Because we did the underfoot skirt. Yeah, okay. Bend it that way and then tuck the other one down. Yeah, that way.
I've got a box
films.
of about 10.
Have you got one, and I can give you another one tomorrow?
Yes, sure.
Thanks.
We did 2, and then we split.
Right.
And it's not what I would call a tight slap.
No, it isn't. It's comforting.
Yes. To pour away over.
It's the weavers here,
Yeah,
I think,
the
that
weavers.
can do with it most.
Where the
Right down
Yes.
the lines of those
Okay.
are the most critical.
Okay.
Instant finger warm weaving.
And we get quite a few in there at a time,
Yes.
and it might help. There's no way. If we get this started,
Yes, the rest doesn't.
Chop a
it's
blanket.
much easier.
I'll open up. Do you think there's going to be too big? I think the gaps are too big now. Well, yes, I'm going to do them. Let's take them and do them for mesh.
Right.
If you like to grab some more really thick ones, bring them along, and then we'll. Look and see we have that right. Yes. That's quite right? Yes. Okay, so what we want, Peter, is quite a lot, about that length. See you, Mary. I'll bring it down. It's a bit tatty. Right for okay, that'll give it a chance to seed a bit. Now, what about that? It's all right. Every time I say it.
As you can hear, the weather conditions could be a lot better.
We may have to stop and do some more kinking. If I put my... It's a much more vertical turn on. I'm sure it is now. I think it's only probably about 12 or 13 at the most. Now what we need now is for Henry to get bits of binder twine and tie it on the 4 points of the compass so we can let go of this Persian gunnel. How deep are we? Can you measure us, please, Peter? Measure over here.
40.
John's filling. Everything is gorgeous. I'm going to trim off one. I think that's a pad as well. I mean, it's not a matter of it's shaved. Yes, that's true. We did need that. Well, we couldn't decide how to work because the gunnel's got to go inside. But if we set it on each of them off, are you hot?
If you go walking around on it and land it, then you wouldn't.
I think it's enough, but very much more promising.
This couple there.
Oh, yes, sorry. No, it's not bad.
It's horsehair that you're using, is
It's
it?
horsehair rope, yes. The problem is getting caught up with these bits which are sort of protruding out of from the willow, the end of the willow.
Why particularly horsehair?
It was what they used at the time. I suppose it was sort of the usual thing. It was the easiest thing for them to have at hand, which is what most coracles tended to have. It's interesting that on the Teivi, with the coracles there, which are used for net fishing, and the Tawi, which are rivers which are very close to each other, one of them used horsehair and the other one used to use cow hair. But one of the things, the advantage of a horsehair rope, it stands up to wet very well. So it's a sort of traditional material, but the big problem is that nowadays it's impossible to get it commercially. Even the famous rope makers like Outhwaite's in the Yorkshire Dales no longer make it. And this one is made by Peter FAULKNER, who makes hide coracles in Lentredine.
Oh, well, we're going to tidy it up on the little bit on the inside. We're not going to cut anything too short in case it expands a bit, but we can't leave all these ends hanging around because things will catch in them and then they'll break off. So something like that, which crosses two stakes, take it off somewhere in the middle of the two stakes so that it doesn't go quite so far, but still has room for any expansion. Would you say that was right,
Yes,
Mary?
I think so.
If you leave too many ends out, you catch them with your feet when you're in it. And then the sticks, we've got to take the tops of the sticks off a bit, but we want to be a bit careful about how short. Have a little look, Mary, and see what you think. Do you think if we were to lay the shears on top like that,
Just cut them dead
and
straight.
just cut them dead straight?
Oi!
Big break up. Yeah. Right. Now, can you see any awful?
Yes.
It's like lace, isn't it?
Yes.
Right, now right up and over. Shall we turn
Do you
it
Yeah.
this way so that he gets the bottom?
Yeah. Do you want to get rid of that first?
Yes, we do want to
Yes.
get rid of that.
Here we are.
Definitely we do.
Yeah.
Right? That's a long time ago. Okay. Now shall we just tidy up its little bottom end and things? You think?
Shall I hold it if you want to do that?
Mm.
Yes, it's probably a good idea just to remember how this all started. It really started as a result of a lunch after the last Lord Mayor's show, when we had making features in it as possible. So we gave it a lot more thought, because although there is a reference to coracles on the Thames, no one has any idea what they look like, but there is clear evidence that a curragh was used in the 1860s as on a race with a Thames waterman. And we thought therefore that the SPEY curragh was the most appropriate one which could be made, both because of its history and the curraghs to be made in this country of a SPEY curragh for 150 years. And that's how it really all started.
And will we actually take it to the Lord Mayor's show?
Well, we'll certainly take it to the Lord Mayor's show, and if we
We'll
find
stand by with the smelling salts when he faints if he tries to carry it on his shoulders around the 2 miles or whatever it is.
I don't mind as long as we stop every 100 yards or something like that.
But it is the only coracle really, isn't it, that is made like a basket? In the
Oh,
design,
totally,
it's
totally,
made like
yeah.
a basket.
I mean, some of the others have basket making, crude basket making around the gunnels, but this, without any doubt, is the only one that you have to really go to Iraq or to Vietnam or India to get anything remotely comparable there. And then, but the Iraqi one is not made of willow or anything like that. It's made, I think, of papyrus, and it's a totally different technique. And the Indian one is made of split bamboo.
But even with this one, we don't know what the middle was like.
Never discussion generally, and thought it'd be a good idea to have a coracle with the display in the mansion house. And as a result of that, I wrote to Mary, who rightly said that she thought that the coracle we made should be one which has got as many basket makers of its basket making qualities. And I obviously then approached Olivia, because we both of us made the first replica, as far as I know, first replica was used in the 1860s as on a race with a Thames waterman. And we thought therefore that the SPEY curragh was the most appropriate one which could be made, both because of its history and the coat.
We've invented the middle.
No.
Well, the middle, it has to be.
Yes,
Yeah.
some
Yes,
variation
yes, it's
on
got
that,
to
or
start
some
in
the
with
centre.
a slat, some
Yes.
sort. Yeah.
There's lots of mysteries attaching to this, because one of them is that in the seat there are 3 holes. 2 holes one can understand clearly, because that would be some form of carrying rope over there. But it's this third hole which has caused a lot of consternation. There may be a very simple answer. It may have been that whoever made the seat just picked up a piece of wood which happened to have holes in it at the
time's
time.
got the same 3 holes, and the thing, you know, the carrying strap
Yeah.
goes down like that, and then it comes up through the other hole and
Yes.
sticks up, and that stops it from slipping.
Yeah, yes,
And
or
couldn't it have
adjusting.
been just the same?
It could
And
be.
then because it won't slip, you can then adjust it to suit you
Yeah.
and it can stay put. But of course, Horsehide doesn't do that, which is why there was a knot underneath before we took
That's
it out.
right. I think another possible explanation, which is maybe more likely, was the last known use for these curraghs was guiding timber down the River Spey. And what happened is the curragh man had a length of line going to the load of timber which was coming down, and if it snagged on a rock, then he cast off the line and went across in his curragh.
But it's still perfectly
Yes.
seaworthy, well, pond-worthy.
One thing which surprised me is that this totally true story of the race between the riverman and the curragh man is the fact that the curragh man won. Until we started using this, and in fact it goes very quickly, this coracle. When you take a look at the size of the paddle, which again is another unique feature, there's no other paddle remotely like this.
The basket makers, having completed their part of the coracle in Hertfordshire, it now goes on a long journey to Herefordshire to have an animal hide sewn onto it so it becomes waterproof.
work starts now. It's a bit stiff at the moment. Nice red hide. Across the tail. That'll have to come off.
Do you use the tail at all for anything as a rope?
On my team coracles.
Okay.
So this hide has come from the butchers. It's been fleshed and cleaned, all the fat and gunge taken off. For it to warm up a little bit. It's quite cold, obviously, being in the cold room. So that'll loosen up a little bit and drain a little bit more. But that now is ready to go onto the basket framework of the SPEY.
Peter has already made and fitted the seat and the base structure, and also he's branded it with the SPEY badge.
Right, well, the seat has been fitted, plus the pillars underneath. When you refer to Hornell's British coracles and the photograph of the SPEY, which is in the Elgin Museum, there are 3 holes in the seat. There are 2 equidistant from the centre, and there's a 3rd hole which I haven't yet drilled, which is slightly forward of these other holes. And I think it's generally agreed that these 2 holes were probably pillar supports, or holes at least for the pillars to fit under the seat to provide that strengthening bar, which you can see in the bottom of the boat. And I can finish it up.
Was it a cowhide or a
Well,
bullock?
it'd be a bullock or a heifer.
Heifer.
Beef.
Yeah.
Yeah, beef steer. The next process is to, there's obviously a lot of spare hide hanging over, so that's all going to be trimmed off, a bit like trimming up a pastry on a pie.
Will you be cutting the tail off?
Yes, the tail isn't left on the, as far as you make out from the details of the the spey. So that will be taken off. This is the hide, obviously, at the back of the beast, which is very, very thick, and then the belly part is contrastingly much thinner, very, very thin and soft around the belly. Start.
Now this is the horsehair rope.
Yeah. The start of the.
Peter plats all this horsehair rope.
Couple of foot left over, which is always handy because if anything ever happens to the rope and it breaks or something,
Yeah.
shouldn't do, but then you can pull it back and put a knot.
No champagne bottle?